The first time Roman soldiers saw Hannibal's elephants, some of them burst out laughing. To Roman generals, elephants looked like oversized circus animals wearing armor. Impressive, sure, but no match for the unbreakable Roman legion. Elephants were called moving hills, foreign cattle, and even parade beasts. Romans believed strict discipline, steel, and perfect formations would turn Hannibal's elephants into nothing more than very large corpses. But then, the elephants started moving. The ground shook, war horns blared, towering shapes surged forward with wooden towers on their backs, javelins raining from above. Horses panicked, formations buckled, and in minutes, the animals Romans once mocked became the most terrifying weapon on the battlefield. Hannibal's elephants didn't just hit Roman legions, Hannibal's elephants shattered Roman confidence. What Roman commanders thought was a joke turned into chaos so complete that an entire empire had to rewrite its playbook just to survive. This is the story of how Roman generals mocked Hannibal's elephants, how the charge of those elephants turned legions into chaos, and how the Romans were eventually forced to reinvent warfare just to survive against elephants. Hannibal's elephants did not appear out of nowhere at Cannae or Trebia. Hannibal's elephants were the legacy of centuries of ancient African and Indian warfare, used by Carthage as shock units designed to break enemy lines in a single, overwhelming push. Roman generals considered elephants useless against Roman discipline. Roman strategy relied on tight formations, heavy shields, and courage in the face of fear. Roman commanders believed no animal could break the Roman testudo, and early Roman historians mocked Carthaginian elephants as unreliable beasts. But the psychological effect of elephants on ancient soldiers was devastating. Elephants could be smelled before they appeared. Elephants created vibrations that Roman ground troops felt through sandals. Elephants screamed war cries that terrified horses instantly. Roman cavalry shattered in the first moments of many battles because Roman horses had never seen, heard, or smelled elephants before. At the Battle of Trebia in 218 BCE, Hannibal's elephants charged through freezing mist, unseen until the final moments. Roman cavalry collapsed. Roman infantry became jammed together. Elephants struck the Roman flank, crushing shields and tossing soldiers into the air. Ancient writers described Romans being trampled so deeply into the mud that shields disappeared beneath the earth. This was chaos Rome had never prepared for. The Battle of the Bagradus River, centuries earlier, proved the same thing. When the general Regulus marched against Carthage, he underestimated the elephants exactly as later Roman generals would underestimate Hannibal's elephants. The Carthaginian commander Xanthippus used over 100 elephants in a single massive line. Romans marched forward confidently until the elephants charged. The Roman center collapsed instantly. Regulus himself was captured. Roman legions that had mocked elephants the day before were annihilated in minutes. Hannibal studied that battle. Hannibal used that knowledge. At Trebia, Hannibal used a small number of elephants to break Roman cavalry morale. At Cannae, Hannibal used no elephants because terrain limited them. But the fear built from earlier battles affected Roman strategy for the rest of the war. The mere rumor of elephants caused panic in Roman units. Hannibal's elephants forced Rome to rethink the entire structure of Roman cavalry, Roman formations, and Roman battlefield spacing. The reverse is also true. Hannibal's elephants eventually forced Rome to evolve. Roman engineers invented anti-elephant tactics, trench lines, stake traps, and flexible manipular formations designed to avoid panic crushes. Romans learned to use loud horns to scare elephants. Romans deployed skirmishers with flaming torches. Romans discovered pigs soaked in pitch and set on fire could drive elephants away in terror. Ancient sources describe elephants screaming and running back into Carthaginian ranks, destroying friendly units. Roman doctrine adapted quickly, but only after losing thousands of soldiers to the chaos of elephant charges. What made Hannibal's elephants even more terrifying was the unknown factor. Romans understood swords, cavalry, and infantry. Romans understood formations and discipline. But Romans did not understand elephants. Elephants introduced an unfamiliar variable into warfare, a weapon that could not be predicted with normal battlefield logic. Roman drill instructors could train legionaries to counter cavalry charges through repetition. But how do legionaries train to face a creature taller than a house, with tusks sharpened to spears, armor strapped to the head, and tower platforms carrying javelin throwers? Roman manuals had no section titled, "What to do when a giant animal charges your entire formation." Even more devastating was the scent. Ancient writers described the smell of elephants as overwhelming, a heavy, musky odor that traveled on the wind before any army came into view. Roman soldiers reported smelling elephants minutes before seeing them, creating confusion and anticipation that destroyed concentration. Hannibal used this to amplify fear. Hannibal positioned elephants in fog. Hannibal positioned elephants behind hills. Hannibal sent elephants forward only when Roman soldiers were cold, exhausted, or emotionally unsteady. By the time elephants appeared, Roman minds were already primed with tension. Hannibal also used elephants as moving walls. Hannibal's elephants carried wooden towers packed with Balearic slingers and North African javelin men. These projectiles came from elevated angles Roman shields were not designed to block. Roman shields, shaped for frontal defense, left openings for downward strikes. Elephant towers delivered attacks from above, like ancient attack helicopters. This high-angle fire confused Roman maniples and broke cohesion long before the elephants even reached the front line. Worst of all, elephants removed predictability from Roman combat doctrine. Romans thrived on controlled, organized pushes. Elephants turned Roman order into Roman panic. Elephants turned battle plans into chaos. Elephants, more than any other weapon, forced Rome to confront fear, not just tactics. What made Hannibal's elephants even more devastating was the way Hannibal used terrain and timing. Hannibal understood that elephants were not simply blunt instruments. Elephants were psychological weapons. Hannibal often deployed elephants at the exact moment Roman formations were stressed, tired, or confused. At Trebia, Hannibal waited until Roman troops were freezing, starving, and exhausted. When elephants finally appeared, Roman soldiers were already shivering and barely able to hold shields steady. Ancient accounts mention that Romans fell out of formation not just from fear, but from physical weakness. Hannibal didn't use elephants to start a battle. Hannibal used elephants to finish breaking Roman discipline. Even more shocking is how elephants were trained for Carthaginian warfare. Ancient writers describe how Carthaginians fed elephants wine before battle to make elephants more aggressive. Trainers would jab elephants with spears to get elephants worked into a frenzy. Some elephants were trained to swing chains or metal balls from their trunks. Others were taught to kneel so archers in the wooden towers could launch volleys from above. Romans had never faced anything remotely like this. Roman legionaries who prided themselves on discipline suddenly found themselves facing enraged, unpredictable creatures bred and trained specifically to terrify human beings. Even more surprising, many of Hannibal's elephants never survived long enough for major battles. Only a few elephants made it over the Alps. The most famous was Surus, Hannibal's last and largest elephant, possibly a Syrian elephant with one broken tusk. Surus became Hannibal's battlefield platform, allowing Hannibal to observe Roman movements from high above the ground. Roman soldiers wrote that seeing Hannibal on Surus was like watching a god riding a moving mountain. This emotional shock mattered just as much as physical destruction. The power of elephants in ancient warfare was never only about crushing soldiers. Elephants broke Roman morale. Elephants broke Roman cavalry formations. Elephants broke the illusion that Rome was unstoppable. The Roman Empire that later conquered the Mediterranean was shaped directly by the fear and chaos created by Hannibal's elephants. The Roman military reforms of Scipio Africanus, reforms that eventually defeated Hannibal, were designed specifically to counter elephants. Roman troops were trained to create lanes for elephant charges. Roman commanders learned to stay calm, let elephants pass, and attack the riders. Rome studied elephants more intensely than any other enemy weapon in Roman history. Another rarely mentioned factor is how elephants changed Roman logistics. Romans were forced to adjust entire supply lines to prepare for future elephant encounters. Roman armies began carrying extra signal horns designed to create disorienting blasts aimed specifically at elephants. Roman smiths crafted heavier infantry javelins with thicker iron heads so the weapons could pierce elephant hide. Roman horse trainers introduced elephants, safely chained and controlled, into training camps so Roman cavalry could desensitize horses to the sight and smell. Some Roman camps even constructed wooden elephant dummies, painted and scented, to simulate real creatures, creating the world's first elephant training simulators. Elephants also forced Rome to rethink battlefield geometry. Traditional Roman spacing collapsed under pressure from elephant charges, so Roman commanders widened intervals between maniples. This shift changed how Rome maneuvered, how Rome marched, and how Rome layered reserve units. Elephants forced Roman generals to think three-dimensionally, not just about the forward line, but about lanes, retreat paths, and angles that could funnel elephants safely. These adjustments carried over into later campaigns in Greece, Asia Minor, and North Africa, proving how deeply elephants influenced Roman military science. Eventually, Rome mastered anti-elephant warfare. At the Battle of Zama, Scipio used open lanes and loud horns to scatter Hannibal's elephants harmlessly through the ranks. This was the final reversal, the moment Rome proved it had learned from years of humiliation. The same elephants that once turned Roman formations into chaos were now neutralized by Roman discipline. But the legacy remained. Hannibal's elephants reshaped Roman military thinking forever. Elephants also shaped Roman politics and propaganda. Roman senators frequently used descriptions of elephant battles as warnings about foreign threats. During heated debates, senators argued that Rome needed stronger armies because a single elephant could do the damage of 100 barbarians. Roman poets wrote about elephants as symbols of nature's fury unleashed against Rome. Roman generals returning from campaigns where elephants had been defeated were celebrated as heroes who conquered monsters. Roman literature turned elephants into legends, transforming battlefield terror into a symbol of Roman endurance. Carthage, too, immortalized elephants. Hannibal's image atop Surus became a Carthaginian emblem of defiance, printed on coins, mosaics, and temple carvings. Every depiction reinforced the same message: Carthage wielded power beyond human scale. This rivalry helped shape the ancient world's political identity. The clash between Rome and Hannibal's elephants became more than a military contest. It became a psychological war between two civilizations trying to control the narrative of strength. The influence of Hannibal's elephants spread far beyond Rome and Carthage. Greek historians wrote treatises on how to stop elephants because the entire Mediterranean world feared a future army fielding more elephants than Hannibal. Even Alexander the Great's successors studied Hannibal's tactics despite living a century earlier, because Hannibal demonstrated how elephants could decide battles faster than cavalry or infantry. The Seleucid Empire, inspired by both Indian war elephants and Hannibal's battlefield successes, created some of the largest elephant corps ever seen in the ancient world. But many of these armies misunderstood Hannibal's mastery. They tried to copy elephants without copying Hannibal's precision, timing, and terrain awareness. As a result, several armies who used elephants incorrectly were crushed by disciplined infantry, proving that elephants were never a simple shortcut to victory. Rome also absorbed elephants into Roman symbolism. After Rome defeated Carthage, Roman cities displayed elephant tusks, elephant statues, and carvings of Roman soldiers fighting elephants as symbols of resilience. Elephants became the embodiment of Rome's greatest test, the moment Rome nearly collapsed under Hannibal's brilliance. The Roman Senate even minted coins showing elephants under Roman control, a message that Rome had conquered not just Carthage, but fear itself. Elephants became a reminder of Rome's greatest vulnerability and Rome's greatest learning curve. And that is why the charge of Hannibal's elephants remains one of the most dramatic turning points in ancient warfare, a moment when Roman generals mocked elephants only to watch those elephants transform disciplined legions into complete chaos. To see more ancient war stories with unbelievable true history behind them, subscribe for more videos.